Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us already. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel, for this part 2 of 2. What is up, man?
I'm still feeling fantastic, buddy, because I enjoy talking about Groups A and B with you. And now we get to talk about Groups C and D, who have some teams that I think we're fairly interested in.
Let's get to it, man. Hammarby, no, I'm just kidding. We're going to start with my squad here. Wednesday, 12:45 p.m. Eastern, Bayern Munich takes on my Lady Gunners of North London, the Arsenal. Very excited about this one. I want to start with Bayern. I mean, the Revenge Tour teams, this is my third of 3. Bayern, I think for me, if you missed in part 1, we talked about Wolfsburg, we talked about Real Madrid as our 2 Revenge Tour teams. For me, Bayern's the third. They were winners of Frauen Bundesliga last season. They go in as the 1 seed. They get to bypass all the qualifying, straight to the group stage, bounced out of the group stage, group of life. That was not the group of life for Bayern Munich, unfortunately. But they are back and off to, I think, a pretty strong start. Domestically, 4 wins, 4 up, 4 down, plus 14 goal differential. And this team was also undefeated through the entire Frauen Bundesliga season last year. That's quite a feat. It's different when you see Barcelona or Lyon do it. Bayern Munich in that league with that competition, that's pretty big time. 19 wins, 3 draws. I'm very conflicted. On one hand, I'm a little confident as an Arsenal fan. I think we can go to Bayern, get a result, maybe get a win.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you see all those talented players, Clara Buhl, Leah Schuler, Georgia Stanway, who put a fucking absolute rocket in the net against Werder Bremen.
Yep.
Jovana Damjanovic for their 4th goal. She took the ball 65 yards, scorched the Werder Bremen's right back, blast one in as well. I mean, she's not going to go 65 against Arsenal. But this team is pretty hardcore. And this was all with their captain, Glodis Vigastottir, earning herself a red card roughly around the 50th minute. So this is with 10. They were able to kind of hang 4 on Werder Bremen, control the game end to end. And they'll be going into this group stage match, I think, feeling pretty confident. And also, I think, probably realistically a little pissed off about how things went last season in this tournament for them.
Bayern Munich is one of those clubs, just in general in Europe, very Real Madrid-like. Like, we don't go into any tournament thinking that we're not supposed to win it. We don't go into any league season thinking that we're not supposed to win it. It is like their birthright to win football matches, to win football tournaments, to win football leagues. So I think you're totally right. I think that they are looking for their revenge tour. And obviously, they all listen to this podcast, so they hear us talking about the Wolfsburg revenge tour, and they're like, no. Hold on a second. We were invincible last year in Frauen Bundesliga in Germany. So you're talking about somebody else's revenge tour just because we're a couple of Johnny-come-latelys and we saw them get bounced in the group stage last year. So I expect that anger to be there. Clara Buhl, Leah Schuler, like you talked about, Pernille Harder, just players who can score in bunches. I'm really excited to see them play. But I'm not letting you get away with this. Do not for a second poor mouth your Arsenal, who looked absolutely dominating. We talked about BK Hacken. We love that squad. Shout out to their supporters. It's a bummer you guys aren't going to be on this Champions League journey with us. They cracked BK Hacken. You don't score 5 goals on BK Hacken. I don't care where the match is played. You could have played it on Mars. You could have played it in Arizona in the heat. I don't think BK Hacken players are ever supposed to give up 5 goals. You guys look good.
Totally agree, man. Well, gave up 4 goals, so still waiting for somebody to hang 5 on Hacken.
That's right.
But could have had 5.
Felt like 5.
Felt like 5, absolutely. I'm not going to front. The draw, last Friday's draw, came down to, is Arsenal going to fall into Group C with Bayern or Group D with Barcelona? Vigorous fist pump when that C got unraveled.
I don't blame you.
I was just like, let's fucking go. So very excited to be in the Bayern group. I think Arsenal is absolutely going to be, at the very least, at the level of Bayern. We're talking about the 2007 UEFA Women's Champions League winners here in Arsenal. And that Hacken match that you mentioned, as an Arsenal fan, I'm kind of used to entering these like tough Champions League ties with some nerves. And I'm just anticipating that we're going to be in the 70th, 80th minute and I'm just going to still be sweating it out. None of that against Hackett. No. By halftime, 2-0 already. Like, Hackett had to do a ton of work in that first match just to get that one goal, and that's kind of how they want to play. They want to play 1-0, 0-0 type matches. So once it's 2-0 at the half, totally depressurize the situation. I love that Mariona Caldente got the second goal because this Arsenal team is starting to play, and I gotta take the L a little bit on this one. Obviously, Arsenal signs Kafaji, signs Mariona Caldente. I thought Kafaji was going to be the gem of the class, but I feel like what Caldente is doing in terms of like controlling the tempo, extending her style to the rest of this team, like you can see it. Like, they're playing a little smarter, they're playing a little bit craftier, a little bit more strategic, a little more patient. And Caldente is kind of like pulling the strings from a position that you're not really used to seeing that from. Now, Kafaji still looks incredible. Today against Leicester, she put two defenders on their ass and had a strike just blocked. The move was just so filthy that you just can't do anything but be thrilled about that player and having her on your team. The Beth Mead, alley-oop to herself before she smashes in for the third.
Yes.
I mean, I think this Arsenal team pretty much rolling. I think Alessia Russo has looked good. She had an assist in a win over Leicester to Frida Maanum. Maanum also scored the fourth goal against Hacken. So Arsenal really is cooking. I kind of like that they're going to Bayern for this first one. A little bit of a good position. Not the highest pressure position, because like this is sort of the toughest match of the bunch. You're going to the 1 seed. You're going to their house. A win there obviously puts you in the absolute driver's seat for the group. Even a draw there probably puts you at the very least, 1A, 1B in terms of driver seatedness. And I think their form has them in a place where they should be really confident going into this match.
100%. I mean, I think you nailed it with Caldente. And I like that you use the term, they depressurized the situation. She's a depressurizer. Mm-hmm. She's been in these situations. And then you think about, too, you named all those players, Frida Maanum, Beth Mead. You got Kim Little, Seattle Reign FC legend Kim Little.
Let's go.
Running around out there for you. Again, not to take anything away from Bayern Munich. This is an extremely winnable group for Arsenal. I would dare say, I think you're the favorites to win this group.
I think I agree with that. I couldn't find any betting lines to confirm it. But if I had to put a number on it, I got to imagine Arsenal's a slight favorite to take the group.
Yeah.
Full agreement there. Let's shift gears, though. Wednesday, 12:45 p.m. Eastern. Hammarby hosting Zenk Pölten. A fun, even-ish type matchup. Different styles maybe at play here. What are you going to be looking for when these two teams lock up?
You talk about when you were watching the draw and you had a fist bump when Arsenal avoided Barcelona's group. Let me tell you a different story. As I was watching the draw and it came down to a couple of clubs either being selected into Group C or Group D, and Hammarby's name was drawn. And let me tell you, buddy, I was actively rooting for them to be drawn into your group. No disrespect to Vålerenga. Far be it from me to underestimate a Norwegian team, especially in favor of a Swedish team. I'm not sure how the fan politics work in those Nordic countries. I was actively rooting for Hammarby not to be in Manchester City's group. We'll talk about them later. I think Hammarby looks good, man. They look really tough. Their atmosphere in their stadium is super live. Their fans are incredible. They're in Stockholm, Sweden, which is a great, great city. Been there a few times. Julie Blackstad, she scored in both legs of their matches against Benfica. She scored in the 16th minute of each match. A little spooky there.
Clockwork.
Yeah, so apparently, those first 16 minutes, that's Julie Blackstad time. Katinka Thunberg is definitely a player after our own hearts. She gets into a shoving match with Nicole Raisla, who I gotta say, I would think is usually ill-advised. Absolutely no back down from Thunberg. Yep. It looked like, I think you'll appreciate this reference, as you're wearing the Miami Heat hoodie. Do you remember when Udonis Haslem and David West got into a shoving match in the Pacers Heat series years and years ago? That kind of reminded me of that. As I watched them get in that, I went, oh no! I had a little bit of hesitation. Yeah, I clutched the pearls. No, everybody calm down. I don't need to see a heavyweight fight right here. Between Blackstad, she's 23 out of Norway. Thunberg, she's 20 out of Sweden. Ellen Wangerheim, she's 20 out of Sweden. And Vilda Hasund, 27 from Norway. This is a Nordic four-headed Voltron that's just going to be tough for anybody to deal with. Those four, at least at the time of this recording, or at the time when I checked the stats before I went and covered an NWSL match, those four combined to have 33 goals and 14 assists just between them in Damallsvenskan this season. So I'll just say, like, I think this, obviously you have the big bad wolf lurking in this group. We'll talk about them in a bit. I think this is a battle between my Manchester City and Hammarby for that second spot. And I think it's going to be a knockdown dragout. I have faith in my squad. I think it's going to be very tough, though.
I guess that has to be attributed to Hammarby's style of play and physicality and kind of environment, and like maybe a little bit of trauma from what we saw from the Swedish teams and the Nordic teams last Champions League group stage.
Yeah,
I would say certainly live. But, you know, when I think about the City, we'll get to City in a little bit, but I just keep thinking that they pushed Chelsea to the absolute brink last season.
Right.
So at the very least, they're in the same-ish ballpark. But from what we saw last season, that doesn't guarantee shit.
That's fair.
It's got to get, like, we were pumped watching Benfica beat this Hammarby side in Stockholm, only to go back to Lisbon and get blanked and get bullied, essentially knocked out before the Group C GB gets rolling. So this team is definitely not one to be taken lightly. And I think when you think about the St. Pölten match, it's going to come down to whose style is this match being played under. So if you're St. Pölten coming into this one, having to travel to Stockholm, like, you already know what you're going to have to bring to the table to kind of stay in this match. This is a side got roughed up pretty good last group stage, but I do expect them to put together some better showings here this year. I think they've looked at in the qualifying phase. So I'm really looking forward to your take on what you think St. Pölten could bring to this matchup.
I'm going to crack a beer for our pals, St. Pölten,
I like
the
it.
Champions of Austria.
STP.
They're a team after our heart as well. Good old STP. 0 goals allowed in their 4 Champions League qualifying matches. 0 goals allowed in their first 4 matches of the OFB Frauen Bundesliga in Austria, as mentioned. Karina Schluter is a very good keeper. And I'm cracking this beer just out of deference to Karina Schluter, because I got ready. It'll take people a little behind the curtain here. I covered the Seattle Reign FC, Bay FC football match in the Soto neighborhood of Seattle today. And I looked at my watch and it was like 56 degrees. And I was like, ooh, better put on a little jacket over my hoodie as a scooter down there. I'll tell you something. Karina Schluter last year against Slavia Praha in the group stage, short sleeve goalkeeper shirt, 37 degrees Fahrenheit. She's tough as hell. She faced 56 shots on target across the 6 group stage matches that she played last year. And she was keeping STP in a lot of those matches, except for the home leg when she played French Giants Lyon. They hung 7 goals on her in the second to last fixture. But other than that, I thought she really kind of kept them in some matches that they had no business being in. But STP, they only scored 2 goals last Champions League group stage. So it was 2-4, 14 against. And if you think about that, 7-1 match kind of skews that math. So they went out and they acquired 25-year-old Czech midfielder Kamila Dubkova. She has 4 goals in 4 matches in league play for STP at the time of this recording. She came over after 6 seasons in Serie A Femminile. She played 4 for Sassuolo, 2 for AC Milan. They're going to need to play that style a little bit. They're going to need to park the bus. They're going to need to play that defensive style like you talked about. They're going to go into Stockholm. It's going to be a crazy environment. They're going to need to try to calm the crowd, quiet the crowd. Maybe Schluter makes some great saves. But I'm excited to see, because I think you're right. They look better than they looked last year, and they dominate that league over in Austria. Now they have that extra wave of experience from last year's Champions League, and I think this could be a sneaky great match to kind of start the Group D proceedings.
Totally agree with you. I would love to see a Schluter match for sure.
Love it.
So that is something that we'll be keeping an eye on. I want to stay in Group D here and shift over to your squad, the Manchester City Sky Blues, hosting the defending champs, FC Barcelona.
I'm going to go opposite of you. We started talking about Group C, and you started with Bayern Munich. I'm going to start with Manchester City. I'm going to be self-involved. I'm going to be self-indulgent.
I like it.
Cruised into the group stage. 8-0 on aggregate over Perry FC. Giant killers, no more. Get out of here. We slayed them handily. No disrespect to Perry FC. We love them as a team. We had them under pressure. Inadozi, God love her, we love her as a podcast.
Totally.
She made some questionable decisions in those 2 ties. I think she was under a lot of pressure. I think she was feeling it. In those qualifiers, 2 goals from Jess Park, 2 goals from Bunny Shaw, 2 goals from Chloe Kelly, and then Viv Miedema and Mary Fowler both added a goal each. Chloe Kelly, I'm going to go back to her. She looked fast. She looked decisive in that second leg versus Perry FC. I'm really curious to kind of see what happens. I'm going to throw this to you. Tell me if you think I'm crazy for this theory. When City signed Alba Fugino, I wondered aloud, we talked about it with our pals over at Shades of Blue. Watch that show immediately. Follow it on YouTube, Shades of Blue, the world's finest Manchester City Football Club podcast, if you're into that kind of thing.
Cosign.
I wondered aloud, what's going to happen with Chloe Kelly in the rotation? Fugino has an audacity and audaciousness to her play. Is Chloe Kelly going to kind of look around and be like, okay, well, Miedema, Hemp, Bunny, I feel like I'm kind of the 4th person left out of this mix in the final third, in the attacking third, if you will. She came in and looked great. And so what I want to posit to you, could we potentially have an Orlando Pride situation in the fine city of Manchester, where all these players are going to realize, okay, maybe I'm not playing 90 in every match. Maybe I'm not playing 60. Maybe there are some matches where I got to give you 35 or 30. Could there be a culture of winning going on there? You talk about them pushing Chelsea, where it's, we're going to play our game, but we're going to play it in the context of the attack, in the context of the system. Or am I just getting vastly ahead of myself after just an 8-0 win on aggregate over Perry FC?
I mean, you're probably getting ahead of. No, I'm just kidding. I think I like it, and I agree with it. I think the Manchester City attack, it's almost like a lot like the men's side. It's not just like for like. These are players with different skill sets, different profiles. And rewinding back to last year, look at those top teams: Chelsea, Lyon, Barca, PSG, much less so.
Sure.
But let's look at those top 3. A lot of movement in those lineups. Even when you got to the knockout stage football and it was a 2-match tie, you would see changes, adjustments to the adjustment. So the fact that you have players like Jess Park, Chloe Kelly, veteran like, Viv Miedema, Bunny Shaw, Hemp, Fugino, Mary Fowler, these are all different players with different makeups. You're going to have to show Barcelona something that you haven't shown yet if you want to be able to compete in this matchup. You could, like Fugino, you could put her anywhere. Jess Park feels like you could put her anywhere, and she's going to be dangerous. So I like the versatility. I like having that extra talent, and I like how different the makeups are for those attacking players.
I think you're right, but you mentioned them. We got to talk about them. It's not a women's football podcast if we don't talk about them. The holders, the juggernauts, the team of destiny, Barcelona. Mappy Leon is back. Mm-hmm. She has played the full 90 in 3 of the 4 Liga F matches Barcelona has played so far. She's going to be paired with some combination of maybe Ingrid Eggen and Marta Torreon, depending on what the look is, I'm guessing, depending on how they feel that day, depending on who they think might dominate that day. You mentioned Barcelona won their match 10-1 over Granada. Previous to that, let's take out the 10-1. Previous to that, their first 3 matches, Eva Pajor, brace, plus an Esme Brooks goal. In the second match, Carolina Graham Hansen gets a brace, and then Putea scores a penalty in game 2. And then away at Sevilla, Aitana Bonmati scores the winner 1-0 at Sevilla. However do you want it, man? Yeah. Anyone can score at any time. Anyone can score a brace in any game. They are the most elite team in the world. The only team competing with them is in your hometown of Orlando, obviously.
Cosign.
But they're not in this tournament. So Manchester City's going to have to deal with Barcelona, and Kira Walsh will return. It feels like you can just go on forever. England as naming the great players at Barcelona. You just have to feel like, and I accuse you of maybe poor-mouthing Arsenal a bit. I don't mean to do that to Manchester City, but we are in the group with the team that I would think is a significant favorite to win this tournament.
I would quibble a little bit with significant. I would say that you could say they're the favorite for sure.
Yeah.
But somehow Barcelona felt maybe a little bit more overwhelming last season. I think I would be a little bit less surprised with kind of like the teams that we've seen. And again, I'm not sure if this is, some recency bias. We watched this qualifying phase a little closer than we did last season.
Sure.
We know these teams a little bit better. We're a little bit more caught up with what's happening domestically with these 16 teams. So it could just be that. But one thing that we do know is that the women's game has been on this kind of like evolutionary fast track. You're just seeing new players bubble up, like new styles, new skills, and you're just, oh, okay, never seen that before, And I think we're watching we're consuming a ton of women's football, and all of a sudden we're, like Galatasaray, I think is the first team that comes to mind. It doesn't feel like there are teams that are at the bottom of these groups that are just sort of cannon fodder the same way that it felt last season. It's going to be interesting to see the goal differential and see if there's a big delta between last year and this year, because that would be a bet that I would make. I think I would bet the margins are going to be a little bit thinner this season. Doesn't mean they're not the favorite, but I think it might be a little bit tougher.
I'm so glad you bring that up, because I was actually thinking about this comparison. In the 2023 World Cup, you had teams like Morocco bubble up and start to play well. You had teams like Colombia who shocked people and were able to make it into the knockout stage. Portugal gave USA a hell of a match in the group stage. And you think about the 2019 World Cup, USA, they were still in that tournament in 2019. They had some gigantic margins of victory, and that gap really seemed to close in the 2023 World Cup. So I think that's a great point by you. I'm really interested to see, are we going to see that kind of mirror image in the Champions League this year?
I got to expect it.
Yeah.
Because we're just seeing it all over. The Olympics, another one. I mean, I think those results totally up in the balance. I mean, there was no predicting it. France, home country, tons of expectations. Spain, the reigning World Cup champions, total flame out. And I think at the end of it, the USA's holding the trophy, but it was a lot trickier than just that. I think, it wasn't the same 2015 or 2019 type situation.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you'll be watching that one closely.
Yes.
I will as well. That's my Wednesday, 3 p.m. Sewn up, locked up. That's where I'll be at. But there'll be another matchup going down in that same time slot. Group C, Vålerenga hosting Juventus, another team flying, I think, pretty high. I love this matchup. I think this is going to be one of the sneaky best matchups of the slate. Different styles. I think it's going to be physical, up and down. I think we're going to get goals. I think we're going to get a couple of yellow cards, some hard fouls. I think we're going to get pretty much anything a football fan might want. This is the match, I think, where you're going to see the full gamut of what this sport can deliver.
I think that's a great point, man. I mean, mixing kind of the Norwegian style of football with the Italian style of football, I think we're 100% in for physicality. I think that goes without saying. But these two teams, they can score. They have attacking talent on each side. Vålerenga, we'll see if we start to attract Vålerenga supporters. You're on my shit list right now, and nothing against you guys. I don't know any of you, but I mean, for anybody who's been following this podcast, this obviously is an SK Braun podcast, considering we became massive supporters of them and were welcomed in with open arms into the Braun battalion during last year's Champions League. You guys just got to stop beating Braun, man. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of watching it. I don't like tuning in to these matches and going onto a website and I have to hit Google Translate, switch to English so I can make sure I navigate into the right place just to watch you beat Braun. Tired of watching that. But in all seriousness, Vålerenga is a talented squad that plays tough. They are a great side. They are running away and hiding with Top Syrian. They're going to win that league. They're likely going to win the Norwegian Cup. They defeated SK Braun 3-1. Braun looked like they started to get things going. Caroline Holland scored the first one, could have had a brace. There were a lot of close calls in that one. I think Braun probably, call me crazy. I think Braun could have won it, but, maybe I'm a little biased. But again, seriously, Vålerenga is tough. They're smart. They play together. They can score. I'm really interested to see how they match up against a Juventus team, who I'm high on them also.
Totally. Yeah, we can keep it real. Vålerenga, they squeaked by Braun today. November 2nd. Those two teams will lock up again in Bergen. But yeah, as you mentioned, they're 11 points clear, 6 matches left.
Yeah.
Absolute driver's seat. That's going to be tough. But yeah, Juventus, who you brought up, I mean, this is a team, tremendous pedigree as well. Before Roma's 2 straight titles, Juventus won 5 straight Serie A Femminile championships. And this is a team that absolutely punked PSG, semifinalists from last year.
Yep.
Just bullied them 3-1 at home. That in itself was a shocker.
Yeah.
Then they go to Paris in front of an absolutely lit crowd, by the way, who'd be props to them. I mean, total bops from the crowd. I was tapping my feet. I was just like, I'm into this shit. Like, I didn't know what they were saying, but I was with it.
Sure.
Juventus didn't care. 2-1 at PSG. Get out of here. Go home. It's over. We talked about Juventus's wide open style. So yeah, they're physical. They like to defend, but they also like to get up and down. They've given up 6 goals already in Serie A Femminile in just 3 matches. That is 7th best in the league out of 10. So they're letting them in over there at Juventus in Torino. So we will see what shape this match takes on. But I do think Juventus, obviously they're in the group with my Arsenal, Bayern Munich. I think they're super live. At Vålerenga, I'm not going to X them out either.
Nah.
So I'd obviously love to see Arsenal kind of cruise through. But something tells me this Group C, there's going to be some drama, I think, late into the group. So I'm a little scared about this Juventus side.
Totally agree. I'm not so sure about Arsenal, but I think Bayern Munich, again, man, this could be an all-time silly take. So we could just go ahead and bookmark this one. For any maybe German supporters that we picked up doing our episodes with the great Peter Weissy of bullynews.com, please immediately follow our guy Weissy on Twitter. Support his work. He does absolutely phenomenal stuff over there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just go ahead and bookmark me doubting Bayern Munich of all teams. That sounds like a great strategy. I'm going to doubt Bayern Munich in football matches. What a good idea. But I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if Bayern is going up against Juventus and finds themselves in a real dogfight in some of those matches. I would say those are probably two of the matches I'm looking forward to most in this group.
Absolutely. And this match will probably already be done by the time you see or hear this episode. But Monday, 12 p.m. noon, Juventus is going to take on Fiorentina. Let me do that again. I called them Fiorentina. Juventus is going to take on Fiorentina in an early season top 3 clash. I think that one's going to tell us a little bit as well.
Yeah, that's going to be very, very interesting. Only a matter of time. We'll have to wait until Fiorentina actually makes the Champions League in one of these upcoming years. I look forward to the 2 people possibly who might get this reference who listen to the podcast. You're wearing the Miami Heat hoodie. We can start making our Tony Fiorentino references when talking about Fiorentina. 2 for 1 here, Eric.
Mount Vernon.
Shout out to Tony Fiorentino. You're our guy.
The
no
guy
matter
right
what.
There. Yeah.
League pass legend. For somebody who's never lived in the state of Florida, I'm glad that you can get so much enjoyment out of that. I know you've watched several of his called games.
Tremendous. Yeah, the legend. How do I
How do you even get out of a Tony Fiorentino?
Let me get out of this. And speaking of legends, legendary runs, quick programming reminder, we will be back later this week with an NWSL Match Week 23 weekend preview where my Orlando Pride, 22 straight unbeaten, will take on the Washington Spirit. 4 more matches left to go into season. We're going to be previewing the entire Match Week 23 weekend and all of the NWSL action. That will be coming up later this week. If you missed part 1 of this episode, definitely go back and check that out. We previewed Tuesday's Champions League matchups, Groups A and B. So that's what's on deck for your boys. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think that's it. I mean, the more we look at these teams now, obviously, like we say, this is a learning podcast. There's more that's going to come up as we watch these teams more. We shouted out the great folks over at DAZN in part 1 of this episode. It's going to be very nice to watch all of these matches in high definition, not looking for sketchy YouTube streams, not looking for YouTube streams that show you the match and then a box pops up in the middle of the feed and says, actually go to this link and you can watch the full match there.
Oh, I hate those.
Just watching on DAZN, the game is the game. They're trying to find the loopholes for us,
sure.
But it'll be nice to just open up the DAZN app, put on the match, watch it all the way through, hear some commentary in our native language, which is going to be nice for everybody all across the world to be able to hear the commentary in their native languages. So I think we hit most of the pertinent stuff, but I'm also certain that we missed some things. So please let us know in the comments, who did we miss as players? What coaches do we need to talk about?
Oh, yeah.
What funny videos and funny moments do we need to look at from the past in these clubs? You guys are always the best. You helped us out in the last Women's Champions League tournament. Please, we're asking you politely. Can you help us out again? Let us know where the holes in our game are. So we're coachable, so we can kind of figure this out.
Absolutely. Definitely looking forward to that. All right, man. I think we did it. That's part 2 in the books. 2 for 1, Eric. It's been another episode of Into the Channel. A sincere thank you for watching, listening, following, liking, subscribing, just plain hanging out with your boys. And remember to like if you liked, subscribe or follow into the channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grand Angle, for, I don't know, man, whatever group he's in, that's the group of life. That's all I'm going to say about that. I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, buddy. I look forward to identifying the group of life with you. I think we have 4 good candidates in this tournament. We will be searching this out. It'll probably take us maybe match week 3, maybe match week 4. I think we should start to be able to determine who the group of life is. But let us know if you have thoughts. I mean, we've already been kind of chopping it up with folks on social media who you think the group of life is. But we're almost there. I agree with you, Dino. I think the Champions League, we can say it is back. The matches happen on October 8th, October 9th. Cannot wait for them. Let us know what you guys are thinking in the meantime, and we will be back to talk to you about those very soon.